Now we're going to get into the fun stuff, my favorite part, CPT. So get out your CPT books and let's get started. Let me give you some history on CPT. The CPT code set is copyrighted and maintained by the AMA, American Medical Association. It is used with other code sets established by the Department of Health and Human Services and other federally named entities for healthcare reporting and reimbursement. In 1983, the Healthcare Financing Administration, now the CMS, adopted CPT and its own Healthcare Common Procedure Coding System, HICS. HICS we will also be talking about in this lesson. These code sets largely standardized reporting for medical services, equipment, and supplies. The CPT book is published annually in the late summer or early fall. The main body of the book is 6 sections: evaluation and management, anesthesiology, surgery, radiology, path and lab, and medicine. Turn to the introduction section of your CPT book and follow along with this. Make notes as needed. CPT codes are 5 digits long. Some procedures are not printed in their entirety. You must refer back to the common portion of the main procedure, not indented above it. You must pay close attention to the indentions. Anything before the semicolon is the header for the indented codes underneath it. So let's look at an example of this. Look at my CPT book. Notice how 10060 is for incision and drainage of abscess. Simple or single? Simple or single is after the semicolon. We highlight everything after the semicolon because it helps us easily identify those that are not the common portion of the procedure. Look at 10061. It is indented underneath 10060. So you must put the verbiage before the semicolon on 10060 with 10061. So what that means is the full description for 10061 is incision and drainage of abscess, complicated or multiple. Let's look at another one. I want you to try. What is the full description of 10081? I'll give you a second to get it. The full description is incision and drainage of pilonidal cyst, complicated. It wouldn't be simple complicated because you would not include anything after the semicolon in the indented code. NCCI stands for National Correct Coding Initiative. Medicare publishes many resources on their CMS website, including the National Correct Coding Initiative, which covers bundling, unbundling, separate procedures, and CPT guidelines. Commercial payers may follow the NCCI edits or may create their own bundling edits. Often the commercial payer will follow NCCI edits, then add to it with their own edits. CCI procedure to procedure coding policies are based on the analysis of standard medical and surgical practice. Coding conventions included in CPT, coding guidelines developed by national medical specialty societies, local and national coverage determinations, and a review of current coding practices. You will not be tested on NCCI edits. You just need to know what NCCI edits are, in case the question is asked. Basically, with NCCI edits, it will tell you if 2 codes can be billed together. Because you don't have access to that on the board exam, you will not be tested on it. And in the real world, there's a system that you can plug in and it will easily tell you if there is an edit against the 2 codes. Sequencing. Once you determine if a code pair can be billed together through NCCI edits, the sequencing of what code goes first is based on the value of the code. Sequencing is based on resource-based relative value scale, or RBRVS. RBRVS is calculated based on physician work value, practice expense, and a component based on the professional liability insurance. The RVUs can be found on the CMS website. The code with the highest RVU is sequenced first. Again, you will not be tested on this because there's no way for you to know what the RVU is for a particular code, but you do need to know what it is. Most practice management systems, the system that you enter these codes into in your job, they will sequence them for you and tell you the value of it for you. So it's not something you have to look up every time, but you do need to know what it is. Looking at your CPT code book, there are 3 different types of codes. There's a Category 1, Category 2, and Category 3. Mainly, you'll be working with Category 1. However, you will have some Category 2 and Category 3 codes, but not many. Category 1 makes up most of the book. It's the main code set, and it's 5 digits long. Category 2 codes are supplemental tracking codes used for performance measures. They are voluntary. You do not have to report them. They end with the letter F. Go to your table of contents in the beginning of your book and see what page your Category 2 section is on and turn to that so you can look at it. Category 3 codes are right after Category 2 codes. These are called temporary codes for emerging technology, services, and procedures. They end with a T, so I think of it as T for temporary. They allow for data collection for services. Do not use an unlisted code if a Category 3 code is available. Reimbursement, if any, is determined by the payer. Usually, these temporary codes are not covered because they are emerging technology and payers have not come out with a coverage policy yet. Temporary codes usually turn into permanent codes once data is collected and they think that the code is relevant and that it needs to be added to the Category 1 section. Now we're going to go over the book. I'm going to show you my book and show you how it's laid out. I think the best way to do this is to do a video of my actual book. This is my CPT book, and I'm using 2017 because it's tabbed and has my notes in it, so I want you guys to see that. As you can see at the top, I have a med terms tab. It's just a random page that med terms are on, and I would usually add med terms anywhere I could find here. So let's go through the book. So your book and the front cover are modifiers, which we'll go over. And then you have, usually all the books come with tabs and extra tabs to put. So when you're tabbing your book, there are sections. So you'll have an E&M tab. So you'll go to the first page of your E&M section, and on the white part right here, you're going to put that E&M tab. Then you'll go to your next section, which is a different color, anesthesia, and you're going to put the anesthesia tab on the white part. And then in your surgery section, you're going to go to the integ, and it says integumentary right here, and you're going to put integ right there. And then you'll keep going until you get to the next chapter, which is musculoskeletal, and you'll put musculoskeletal there. And you just keep going until you have all your tabs in your surgery section. After your surgery section, you have your radiology section. And I didn't tab my appendix pages just because I don't really, I mean, you use them, but it's just a lot of tabs and I don't really tab those that often. If I need to get to them, I'll find them. I know they're at the back of the book. Okay, so another thing I wanted to point out is some good information is, so like I said, quick reference to modifiers here, which obviously it's in Appendix A as well. Then you have your place of service codes on the first page. This is a good page to write stuff. And then if you keep going past these, you got your table of contents. And then after your table of contents, this is the part I want everyone to read during the introduction course, is the introduction to CPT. And it kind of goes over everything that we're going over, but in less detail. And then it has an illustrated anatomical and procedural review, which is what I labeled as med terms. And then it starts with your chapters. In the back is where your index is. Like in the ICD-10, your alphabetic index was in the front, and your CPT, your index is in the back. So if we were going to code a brain abscess drainage, we would go to brain, and then abscess, and then drainage. And it points us to 2 codes. So we'd have to go look at those 2 codes in the beginning of the book. So we're in the 5s, we would go to the 6s. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a brief how the book is laid out so that you guys would know. Guidelines are at the beginning of each section of your book. Guidelines give further explanation and explain when something should and should not be billed. There's not a guidelines section like in ICD-10. It's at the beginning of each coding section if there are guidelines that apply. Add-on codes. This is a very important thing to remember. An add-on code has a plus symbol next to it. The rules with add-on codes are they never are coded alone. They always have to have the primary procedure coded. That's why they're called an add-on code. You will see the words each additional and list separately in addition to the primary procedure with these codes. That will indicate that they are add-on codes as well. A 51 modifier is never used with an add-on code. Make a note of this. This could be a shortcut in some of your test questions. If you see an add-on code with a 51, you automatically know that that answer choice is incorrect. Let's look at an example. This is an add-on code in the integumentary section. 10035 is the main code. For placement of soft tissue localization device or devices, clip, metallic pallet, wire, needle, or radioactive seeds, percutaneous, including imaging guidance, first lesion. And then the add-on code underneath it is each additional lesion. So you would code the 10035 for the first lesion. And then if there were 3 other lesions, you would do 10036 times 3. Notice the parenthetical note underneath it that says use in conjunction with 10035. That is another indicator that that is an add-on code. So you have 3 indicators. One is the plus symbol. One is the list separately in addition to code for primary procedure. And one is the use 10036 in conjunction with 10035. Now we're going to talk about modifiers. Modifiers are extensions to codes that tell a little bit more about the story. They don't change the procedure performed, but they do alter it. So let's talk about some modifiers and some ways you would use them. 22 modifier is for increased procedural services. When the work required to provide a service is substantially greater than typically required, it may be identified by adding a 22 to the usual procedure. Documentation must support the substantial additional work and the reason for the additional work. Some examples are increased intensity, increased time, technical difficulty, severity of patient's condition, physical and mental effort required. 25 modifier. The 25 modifier goes on an evaluation and management code, which is your office visits or hospital visits. The definition for 25 is significant, separately identifiable evaluation and management service by the same physician or qualified healthcare professional on the same day of the procedure or service. Basically, the 25 is saying this office visit was done separately from the procedure and I deserve to get paid for both instead of just one. So it, in a way, unbundles the office visit or the hospital visit from the procedure, saying I did both today and they were both separate. 26 modifier is for professional component. So what I want to talk about here with the professional component is I want to give you an example so you can understand. 26 modifiers typically go on radiology codes, such as an X-ray or MRI or CT. The professional component is for the physician's side, for the reading of the image, for the radiologist. Now, there's an opposite to the professional component, which is not listed on here, and that's the technical component, and it is a TC modifier. That is for the equipment, the hospital. So basically, if a doctor is having an X-ray or any type of imaging done on a patient at the hospital, which is not his office, he would put the 26 and the hospital would put the TC, because the doctor deserves to get paid for reading that, and the hospital deserves to get paid because they own the equipment, the X-ray tech or the MRI tech. So that's kind of why those modifiers exist. On the other hand, If you're getting an x-ray in a doctor's office, he owns the machine and he is going to be reading it. Then there would be no modifier added. So really, you want to pay attention to where the patient is in these scenarios. If the patient is in a facility, use the 26 for the doctor. Use the TC for the facility. We'll go over that more when we go over the radiology section, but I did want to go ahead and give you an example of that. The 51 modifier. So the 51 modifier is probably the most commonly used modifier. When multiple procedures are done other than an E&M, physical medicine or rehabilitation service, when they are done and are performed at the same session by the same individual doctor, the primary procedure or service may be reported as listed. The additional services or procedures may be identified with the 51 modifier. The 51 modifier says multiple procedure, and it tells the insurance company that we're doing 2 procedures on one day, so they're going to pay you 100% for that first procedure, and because you already have that patient prepped and open and everything, they're going to give you a 50% reduction for that second procedure. So if you look at the 2 codes I have listed here, that is an arthroscopic rotator cuff repair of the right side, 29827. While they were doing the rotator cuff repair, they also did a Mumford procedure, which is a distal claviculectomy. So because they were done on the same patient in the same operative session, the 29827 would be listed first, and the 29824 would be listed second, with the 51 saying multiple procedure reduction. Some more modifiers is 53, discontinued procedure. Under certain circumstances, the physician or qualified healthcare professional may elect to terminate a surgical or diagnostic procedure due to extenuating circumstances or those that threaten the well-being of the patient. It may be necessary to indicate that a surgical or diagnostic procedure was started but discontinued. 57, decision for surgery. This goes on in an evaluation and management service. An evaluation and management service that resulted in the initial decision to perform the surgery may be identified by adding modifier 57 to the appropriate level of E&M care. We'll talk more about these E&M modifiers when we get into the evaluation and management section. Modifier 62. This is used when 2 surgeons work together as primary surgeons performing distinct parts of the procedure. The unbundling modifier. 59 stands for distinct procedural service. Under certain circumstances, it may be necessary to indicate that a procedure or service was distinct or independent from other non-E&M services performed on that same day. Modifier 59 is used to identify procedures or services other than E&M services that are not normally reported together but are appropriate under these circumstances. Documentation must support a different session, different procedure or surgery, different site or organ system, separate incision or excision, separate lesion, or separate injury, not ordinarily encountered or performed on the same day by the same individual. However, when another already established modifier is appropriate, it should be used rather than 59. Only if no more descriptive modifier is available and the use of 59 best explains the circumstances should 59 be used. An example I can give for 59 is if 2 procedures aren't usually done together, they're usually included in each other, but one procedure is done on your left shoulder and the other procedure is done on your right shoulder. That's a different anatomic site. So you can unbundle that and tell the insurance company with this 59 modifier that it was separate and distinct from the other CPT code. The last modifiers I'm going to go over with you is the right and left modifier. You will use the RT when a procedure is done on the right side of the body, so the right arm or the right leg, the left side of the body, the left arm, the left leg, or the left kidney, the right kidney. If there's 2 and it could be bilateral, you'll want to use the right or left to identify which side of the body it was on. Then you have finger modifiers, F1 through F9 and T1 through T9. F1 starts with your left thumb. Then you go all the way around to your index finger. Your left index finger is F2. Your left middle finger is F3. And the finger after that is F4, your ring finger. And then F5. So now we're going to go over the last modifiers that I'm going to go. So now we're going to go over the last modifiers for the lesson today. I do want everyone to go to Appendix A and look at all modifiers and read about all modifiers. The right modifier is for anything that is bilateral but is on the right side. So your right kidney, your right shoulder, your right knee, those would all need a right modifier. The left side is LT, and then you have finger modifiers, any procedure done on a specific finger. So the finger modifiers start with FA, so FA starts with your left thumb, and then it goes to F1, which is your left index finger, and then your left middle finger is F2, your left ring finger is F3, and then your left pinky is F4. And then it goes to your right hand. So your right hand thumb is F5 because we left off at F4. And then your index finger is F6. Middle finger is F7. Your ring finger is F8. And your pinky is F9. And it's the same thing for your toes. These are listed on the back cover of your CPT book as well as in Appendix A. Now, throughout the CPT book, you will see symbols. So we're going to go over what these symbols mean. The red or blue circle next to a code indicates a new procedure number has been added to the CPT manual. The blue triangle communicates a code revision that has altered the procedure descriptor. The facing triangles are symbols used to indicate new or revised text other than the procedure descriptors. You won't really use these that often except for when you are coding in the real world and you want to know what was updated from the previous year in a specific chapter. These are easy ways to go and identify what's new and what's been revised. Now this pound symbol is important. So what this pound symbol is, it's stating that a CPT code is out of numerical order. Occasionally, a code description is modified or a new section is created, causing the codes to be placed out of sequence. When this occurs, the AMA places a pound sign next to the code. Let's look at this. Look in your book right now to 46947. You will see 46947 in red where it usually should technically be. And it says code is out of numerical sequence. So my little trick for quickly finding where that is without having to flip forever is I just go back and the codes before that code, I just go quickly and I look to see the first code with the pound symbol. And so if you do that, you go up the page on the second column and then you go up the page on the first column and you see 46947 with the pound symbol next to it. And that's the one we're looking at. Some procedures are designated as a separate procedure in parentheses at the end. And looking at 58900, please turn to that now. you will see that 58900 says biopsy of ovary, unilateral or bilateral, separate procedure. This is important to remember. When the separate procedure classification is seen at the end of a code, it serves as a reminder to coders the separate procedure is ordinarily a component of a larger procedure and should only be reported separately when it's performed alone or when it is unrelated to the primary procedure. So basically, separate procedure means it's only coded if it's done alone. In this case, when the biopsy of the ovary is performed in conjunction with another procedure on the female genitalia, such as a wedge resection of an ovary, is considered inclusive and should not be coded separately. That would be considered unbundling. So remember, separate procedure, only coded alone. This will help you on your test. If you see a separate procedure on an answer choice that is coded with another CPT, then you automatically know that that is the incorrect answer. Some other terminology is each additional. When you see each additional, that means you can code that procedure for each time it occurs, such as each biopsy. If it says each biopsy and you have 6 biopsies, you can code that code 6 times. But if it says biopsies with the S in parentheses, you can only code it once, no matter how many times it was done. Make sure to look at your parenthetical notes. They're very important and you're sure to be tested on it. For example, under 10036, it says to report a second procedure on the same side or contralateral side, use 10036. Surgical package. This is a guideline in your book if you turn to the beginning of the surgery section. Payment for surgical procedures includes a standard package of preoperative, intraoperative, and postoperative services. This is known as the Surgical Global Package. Most health plans have adopted the CMS Global Package concept, although some health plans write variances within their policies. Each health plan has a leniency to determine if a global period is applicable to surgery procedures. The services included in a global surgical package may be furnished in any service location that is a hospital, an ambulatory surgical center, or a physician's office. So if you have surgery, these are all the things that are included in that surgery procedure. Local infiltration, metacarpal metatarsal digital block or topical anesthesia, the evaluation and management services subsequent to the decision for surgery, on the same day before or on the date of surgery, immediate postoperative care, including dictating operative notes, talking with the family and other physicians or other qualified healthcare professionals, writing orders, evaluating the patient in the post-anesthesia recovery area, and typical postoperative follow-up care. Normally with major surgeries, a typical postoperative follow-up care lasts 90 days. So if you have a surgery for 90 days, you go see your doctor, you don't have an office visit charged out because you're in the surgical global package. I do want to note that there are appendixes in your book. We've already went over Appendix A, which has your modifiers. If you look at Appendix B, these are changes and additions. I never really use these, so I don't even tab it because those are the ones that we talked about have the symbols next to the codes. Appendix C is E&M examples, which we'll go over in the E&M section. Appendix D is add-on codes. Again, I don't use that appendix because add-on codes have the plus symbol next to them. Appendix E is exempt from the use of Modifier 51. Appendix F is exempt from the use of Modifier 63. Appendix G includes moderate conscious sedation. Appendix H is alphabetic index to performance measures by clinical condition or topic. Appendix I is genetic testing code modifiers. Appendix J is electrodiagnostic medicine listing of sensory motor and mixed nerves. Appendix K is product pending PDA approval. Appendix L is vascular families. Appendix M is remembered CPT codes, citations crosswalk. Appendix N is summary of resequenced codes, and don't use that one. It has a pound symbol next to those. And Appendix O is multi-analyte assays and algorithmic analysis. We will go over these appendixes in more detail as we go through the book I don't really use the appendixes that much, but you do need to know that they are there if you need them. Now let's get into looking up a code. We're obviously going to have a course on each chapter of this book, but you need to generally know how to look up a code. As we go through the course, I'll tell you how I do it. I don't necessarily do it this way, but this is the correct way to look up a code. So first, you want to review the medical documentation and highlight the procedures. Pick out the procedures and the important parts in that scenario. Second, you want to reference the alphabetic index. In your ICD-10, it is in the beginning of your book. In your CPT, it is in the back of your book. To find the code in the index, you look under either the condition, the name of the procedure, or the service performed, the anatomic site, or synonyms, eponyms, or abbreviations. So it could really be anything. The third step is review the numeric code in the chapter and make sure that it is correct. So we're going to do one together. So scenario 1, let's look up an excisional biopsy of an ovary. In our index, in the back of the book, I want you to flip to ovary. So that's the body location. Now that you've found ovary, I want you to look underneath it at biopsy. You are directed to 2 different codes. So let's turn to those 2 codes, 49321 and 58900. First, let's go to the first one, 49321. Pause this video and get to that code. 49321 is for a laparoscopic surgery. Notice how it says that in the description. But we are looking for an excisional biopsy, which is reported with 58900 once you look at it. Locate code 58900 now. As you can see, this is the correct code for this scenario. Now that we've learned the very basics of CPT, we're going to talk about your HICS book. Now, your HICS book will really only constitute probably about 3 or 4 questions on your test. So I wouldn't stress too hard about it, but you do need to know how to use it. The HICS stands for Healthcare Common Procedure Coding System, and it is maintained by CMS or Medicare. Not many questions on your exam, like I said. This is your smallest book out of the 3. The most common thing that comes out of here is supplies and durable medical equipment. For example, in your book, if you turn to the DME section E0100 through E8002, those are the chapter that wheelchairs are in. Per CMS, temporary codes can be added, changed, or deleted on a quarterly basis to this book. Permanent codes are updated every year, annually. If you look in your book, you should have a table of contents that looks something like this. And it says that your A codes are for transportation services of ambulance and medical and surgical supplies. Your B codes are external and paternal therapy. Your C codes are outpatient PPS. Your E codes are DME, durable medical equipment. Your G codes are procedures or professional services, the temporary codes. Your H codes are alcohol and drug abuse treatment services. Your J codes are injectable medications. So like if you get a steroid shot, the steroid itself is coded with a J code. Your K codes are temporary codes. Your L codes are orthotic or braces or prosthetic devices. Your M codes are medical services. Your P codes are path and lab services. Your Q codes are temporary. Your R codes are diagnostic radiology services. Your S codes are temporary national codes, non-Medicare. Your T codes are national T codes established for state medical agencies. Your V codes are for vision services and hearing services. You have appendixes in your HICS book. Appendix 1 is your table of drugs, where those J codes come from. Appendix 2 is HICS specific modifiers. That's a good one you need to tab, as well as the table of drugs. Another one you need to tab is this abbreviations and acronyms. That's going to come in handy. Appendix 4 is pub references. Appendix 5 is HICS changes. Appendix 6 is place of service and type of service, and so on. So the next thing I wanted to point out is that abbreviations and acronyms, because it will come in handy if that's a test question. So in scenario 1, what is the correct HICS Level 2 code for a removable metatarsal foot arch support that is pre-molded? What we're going to do is we are going to go to our alphabetic index, which is very small gray section at the beginning of the book. Once we get there, we're going to look for support arch. You're directed to look at code range L3040 through L3090. Turn to that section now. Pause this video until you find the code. When you review the L codes, L3050 represents a removable, pre-molded metatarsal foot arch support, and that is your correct answer. I want to talk about the J codes very briefly. We will go over them more in different sections, but turn to J3301. As you can see on J3301, it says injection, not otherwise specified, 10 milligrams. So say your scenario had a 40 milligram of Kenalog. You see the Kenalog down here? Then you would code J3301 times 4 because the code says 10 milligrams. So if we injected 40, this code needs to be coded 4 times.